Doesn't matter how many times I see that. I'm like, it. Those of you that been, you've been to the DR with the Children's Cup trip? I know you two have. You have. There's anybody? Yeah, over here. I'm telling you, there's something special about going and seeing them because like some of those kids, I actually recognize their face. Like I'm rubbing it. There we go. I actually recognize those kids, and I'm like, when there's that extra connection, it just like, you know. So some of those kids are from. We work in Africa, so South Africa, Eswatini, and in Mexico, Belize, Honduras, and of course the best, DR. Right? It is really a privilege to be able to watch these kids grow up and to engage with them, and that's what you guys are stepping into. There's a whole community. There's 30 kids right now in that community, and more coming in El Peje, the fish. Don't know why. It's not like it's a coastal town or anything. It's just the fish. But those kids' lives will be different. Their dreams will change the world because of you guys being a part of it, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. I want to say, first of all, this is really cool. Like, this is really cool. Like, to have tracked along for 6.5 years of the story of this church and the dream in their hearts, and man, this is refreshing to see. You know, you guys look at this and you're like, we got this other thing coming. That's really awesome. You know, I'm excited about that too. But man, don't despise this. This is great. I actually drove up to the office this morning. I had the address wrong, and I thought, man, it's kind of smaller than I thought it was going to be. You know, it's like I don't know how we do in church in here, but you know what? It's the presence of God in this and the worship. You guys, I mean, Skitch Patterson on the drums there. You know. Great job leading us in worship. And I think there's a big difference between leading songs and leading worship. And this was worship, and I needed that today. I needed to be in that. And what you guys have done as pastors planting a church, we were talking earlier, you know, I forget which of you said it was like, this is crazy. We're planting a church. That's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. You know, it's one of the dumbest things you can do. I mean, unless God tells you to do it, then you're like an idiot not to do it. But it is crazy. It is one of those, it's not just starting a business. It's not just an entrepreneurial thing. It puts a bullseye on your back in the spirit world. You know, the enemy does not like new churches and doesn't like to see churches thrive. And you guys have said yes to God, and that is something I don't take lightly. Pastors are my heroes, church planters, ultra heroes. And you guys have stuck through a lot of pain. You've stuck through a lot of highs. You've not gotten a big head about good things God's done. It's all about God, and it's all about the people of this city. You guys love your city. And I love the term, I love the name of the church. Like if I could pastor a church, I'd probably name it Hope City. Because you love your city and it's about giving them hope. How many of you met Jesus because of Hope City Church? Raise your hand. Anybody in here? There you go. Look at that. That to me is incredible. That's why you start the church. You know, it's because of people who didn't know Jesus now coming to meet Jesus. That excites me. I think Easter, that's one of the coolest. Now, is that hard-boiled eggs? Because I think, don't answer, because here's the thing. When you invite somebody, if you leave it ambiguous, they're coming. 10,000 hard-boiled eggs dropping out of a chopper. That'd be incredible. That's exciting. And then, you know, you were talking about the donkey. That's me today. You know, you named you and Mark. You're like, we're going to be, and then it's kind of left it there for me to be the donkey. So I'll take it. I'll be the donkey. Hopefully, I do feel like God's given me something to share with you guys I've never preached this before. Early on when I started going around preaching a lot, ended up with opportunity to preach a lot. Had a friend of mine tell me, hey, if you're preaching a different church every Sunday, you don't need a new message every Sunday. Just get good at one. Well, that was 3 years ago. I got good at that one. It's like, okay, it's time for a new message, you know. So this is the first time I've preached this, but it is something burning in my heart because it's right in line with what God's doing with us as Children's Cup. And I will say this. Thank you, those of you who have invested in Children's Cup already. As a church, you guys have given to make a difference already. We're not starting something today. This is launching forward, but you guys have already invested in the lives of so many kids. And there's, you know, kids, we could talk stories of kids we just met on that one trip when I went with your pastors. It's incredible when you see what's already happened in the 1 year, but then when you fast forward, what's God going to do? It's incredible. Just a little bit about me, so you know my context. I been married 33 years to. It's a dumb thing to say. I've been married to my wife 33 years. I've been married 33 years. She's my wife, of course. Anyway, and she's like any minute now going to be landing in Johannesburg, South Africa, going with a couple of our executive team to check on our projects there. First time she's gone to Africa in 20 years without me. And I'm jealous as anything, and I'm like, I've put my phone on airplane mode so that it won't, like, she's calling from the airport while I'm preaching. That'd be a little awkward. Hey, Vicki, how you doing? But anyway, we've been married a long time, and she is my best friend, and I think that's the way to do it. We got 5 kids, 2 in-law kids, and 1 grandkid. I'm looking at my notes like I need to see that. Our grandkid lives in Baton Rouge, so we actually just about 6 months ago moved back from California to Baton Rouge to be near our 1 grandkid, because our role we can live wherever in the country we need to. We work remote. All of our team is scattered around the world for Children's Cup, and so we just picked a good time zone, and that happened to be where our grandkid was. He's 4 years old, Cosmo Blue. That's his name. I'm like, my daughter's a hippie, and that's fine with me, whatever. They literally just got 10 chickens. They've been picking up dogs off the road. I think there's with the chickens, there's probably 18 animals at their house now. I'm like, how about grandkids? I need a granddaughter, anyway. So we live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where my wife was born and raised. All our kids were born there. And go Tigers. Come on. Anybody? No? Oh, ouch. Hey, as long as it's not Bama, I'm good. I check scores for football. Did Bama lose? That's a good day. I don't care if LSU won or not. Sorry. Any other Bama haters in here? Okay, good. I'm not going to say the 2 RT words. That's both 4-letter words in church. Anyway, I get to lead Children's Cup now, which is something that I really never thought God would do. And it's never something, for about 5 minutes, I thought I want this job way back when Children's Cup first started. But I've been able to walk with my parents through when they started it 31 years ago last week. It is something I told Peter and the team this morning. I've never been more excited about what God's doing in Children's Cup than right now, because of this shift in our ministry model to be friendship, to actually walk with these kids from the time they're 4 years old is about the youngest we can take them into our care points. They come to a care point and at 4 or 5 years old, and they come, and by the time they're 18, they're ready for life. They're not just kids who've got free meals and had a good place to play on a playground. They're kids they're ready for life. That's what we're walking through. So we get 14, 15 years with these kids. Can we switch? I can switch. And it's good. Should I cut this one off? Which, by the way, okay. We good? Check. Yes. All right. I meant to do this earlier. Now it totally doesn't even work. But I'm like, the only time audio guys or the tech booth gets pointed out is when something went wrong. So I was going to do it before something went wrong. But anyway, I just want to say thank you to you guys, because without you, I'd be up here yelling in the dark. And that's just awkward. It's where I started serving in church, and if you need a place to serve and you're an introvert, that's your spot. Ain't nobody bothers you, You only get looked at if you mess up. Anyway, or if people think you messed up, because you never really mess up in the booth. People just think you messed up. Anyway, I do seriously thank you guys. With Children's Cup, Mom and Dad's dream when they started it was to feed 300 or 400 kids and tell them about Jesus. And that was a big dream. With what resources they had, that was a big dream. And we just got the numbers in a couple months ago from last year. 16,000 kids were fed meals, 2-point-something million meals, just over 2 million meals we fed kids. And every one of those meals went out with a Jesus Loves You or a Bible study or something that went with them telling them about Jesus. So we're doing it. God blew that vision up. And now with what we get to do, to see those kids actually change their world. Our vision statement is just giving hope, inspiring dreams, changing worlds. We give the kids hope. It looks like a meal. Kids who don't have, they're just trying to survive day to day. Some of the kids we work with, food's not the big thing, but they don't have hope. Their only hope is maybe I could find, it's gangs. In Latin America, that's the big thing. Go be part of a gang. As you turn 12, 13 years old, if you're a boy, you're going into gangs. And there's no alternative. Well, giving them hope for those kids looks like giving them alternative. Like, you don't have to do the gang. You can do this. And whatever that is, that hope, as hope settles in, they start to dream. They realize, oh, I'm going to grow up. What am I going to do with my life? And as we teach them about Jesus, teach them the Bible, and we help them through school, they actually think, maybe I would graduate one day. And maybe I will be healthy enough to get a job and to do all this. Maybe. Those dreams start to settle in. What happens is God starts putting putting Jeremiah in them. You know, I know the plans I have for you. God's telling them, I do have a dream for you. And he starts revealing that to them. And then the third piece of that is what happens when you got a kid who's got hope. She's got everything she needs to be able to go after this dream. She goes out and changes the world. She changes her world. Sometimes maybe these kids aren't going to be missionaries to Iceland somewhere. Great. They're going to change their world. And that's the big thing. How do you see El Peje not continue to be a place where poverty is so rampant? How do you see that happen? It's these kids. It's not us. It's not one of us writing $1 million check to change the economy of El Peje. That's not it. We invest in these kids' lives so that as they grow up, they change that world. And we've seen bits and pieces of that, and now with the whole model being to work with the kids that way. It's body, mind, and spirit. So what we do with friendship, we call it friendship. You say, hey, I want to be a friend of El Peje. Your church and El Peje already have a relationship. And you can step into that as an individual and say, I want to be a part of that personally, engaging with the kids. Go on a trip. Oh, I don't want to go to Dominican Republic. Well, you're crazy because it's beautiful. But if you don't want to go, that doesn't mean you can't be a part. That's a bonus. Like getting to go is huge. It's great. It's cool. Like you should go. But even short of that, you have the opportunity to engage with these kids through a community page. It's kind of like a Facebook. It's not Facebook, but it's kind of like Facebook where it's private, though, to this church and the El Peje community. The kids there, the team there, the pastors there who are incredible people. You get to build friendship and relationship with them. And that is, to me, to walk with these kids as they go through stuff, to tell them, hey, we got this thing going on in my town. We need prayer. Those kids will pray for you. The kids will say, hey, I got this thing I need prayer for. I'm about to go take my finals. Would you pray for me? And you get to exchange that way. You get to celebrate with them. Some kid gets saved and gets baptized. You get to celebrate with the whole community with that. So we're really excited about that community page where that engagement can happen. The way it all happens is on the financial part is we invite people to give $44 a month, which covers the cost of one kid going through our program. Our program's not just come get a meal and listen to this lesson and then go home. It's a program like Junior Achievement, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Royal Rangers, if you're in the Assemblies of God like I was growing up, that's my language. It's the program you go through. There's challenges. You say, oh, I want to go get in Boy Scouts, get my merit badge or get my badge for this or whatever. With these kids, it may be something like, hey, let's help you pass 4th grade. Let's help you learn how to play on a soccer team. We do upward sports with the kids. Let's help you learn how to work with a word processor on a computer. Let's help you reach these goals. And as these kids, we took the kids out on Serve. Y'all do Serve Day here? We took the kids out on Serve Day last year to serve it in different ways and just found outreaches to get them to be a part of. Those kids getting to serve was such a huge thing because they're not just receiving. They're actually saying, oh, God can use me to help somebody else? Yeah. And that grows them like crazy. You remember the first time, maybe some of you hadn't had this yet, but you're going to. First time you felt like, man, I realized God just used me to help somebody. You remember what that felt like? If you haven't felt it yet, that's the message today. Go after that. Let God use you. But what happens when you do that, you realize, oh, I have value. God can use me to change somebody else's life, use me to help somebody else. That makes a huge difference. So we give those kids that opportunity. And it's all through this program. We give them the program. It costs us, we did all the math, and averages out at about $44 a kid that it costs us to help the kids go through the program. So we invite you. That's what that table is out there. You can learn about it more there, but I'll head out there afterwards. But it's $44 a month. You can sign up to do that, and it will open up all the access to that community page for you to be a part and engage with the kids. And you can go on a trip if you're not doing that, but I'm telling you, by the time you come back, you're going to be doing it. So it's fine. That's that. There's the friendship. I'll tell you, one of the reasons we did this shift, I was in Mexico at one of our care points, and there's a little girl there who's been coming for about 8 years. No, take that up. She was 10 years old, so she's been coming about 6 years to the care point. She got cerebral palsy. Her grandmother's one of our cooks. They would bring her on a board because her muscles were just locked up. Bring her on this, like a stretcher, but it's just a board. And there was one little girl a year younger than her would just come every day and just be a friend to her, talk to her, play with her, and actually would take her feet and just kind of move her muscles for her, move her legs for her, do that with her arms, just kind of like just play with her, just make something fun. She did that for like 2 years. This friend of her. The friend's name is Yatsiri. We've told the story of the girl with cerebral palsy, but this one, to me, the story is about Yatsiri, the little girl that would come and just play with this girl and talk to her and be a friend to her. The day that I got to that care point, one of the care point workers was walking with her, holding her hands up, and she's taking steps. It was the day before was the first time she'd taken a step in her life. That girl, and she was shrieking with joy, just totally excited. The reason she got to that point is because that friend was actually doing something medically accurate to do. I think it was just working with her muscles, helping her muscles just loosen up. So she was able to take steps. The joy on the little girl's face was there because she had a friend who had invested in her. And that's what I want to talk about today is friendship. I love the title. It's not that complicated. It's not. I mean, I'm not a big Facebook guy, but I know that you have your relationship status. It's complicated. Okay, yeah, it can get complicated, but it doesn't have to be. Friendship does not have to be that complicated. When you watch a documentary, I used to be documentaries. When I was growing up, documentaries are the most boring thing you could watch. Like, it's science class in school. Just boring. Now, that's like all my boys and I watch is documentaries. They're like 19, and we're watching documentaries. But it's very interesting the way they do them now. But one thing I noticed is when you get somebody, you're watching this documentary, a famous person, a leader, great whatever, when they talk about how they got where they are, if they got any sense in their head, they're talking about somebody influenced them, somebody invested in their life. But when they talk about those people, it's not what they gave them. Well, they gave me a great haircut, or they gave me $100, or they gave me. Most of the time, it's things like this. These are the phrases I hear. He always made time for me. She listened to me talk about my dreams. He gave me some great advice right when I needed it. Or she encouraged me not to quit. Or he was there when I was hurting. That's the kind of things you hear when you talk about somebody reflecting on their life and how they got to the greatness that they're living in. It's because somebody did those things for them. For me, I'm not great. No, I'm the donkey, remember? My dad listened to me talk about Vicky and whether I should propose to her. I was confused. She's 5 years younger. She's 17, okay? And I'm thinking, this is the one, but I'm like, she's 17. How do I propose to a 17-year-old, And my dad was listening to me talk about it. And he just said, just ask her to get married on her 18th birthday. So that's what we did. Only the church scheduled something on top of our wedding, so we moved it up a week. So I did marry a 17-year-old. Yeah, our daughter was born 2 years later, so we're good. And my mom listened to me gush about my dreams. And she, to this day, she still prays relentlessly for me. And here's the thing, that's my dad and mom. But they were friends to me, too. They're not just parents. They were friends to me. Connie Brune, lady in Belgium, when I was a kid living there with my parents, they were missionaries. She believed in me. She gave me a chance to serve. Sunday school class, would you help me run this? I was 13. I was like, okay. But she saw something in me. She said, would you help? Glenn Berteau, a pastor, he invited me to lead. I was in Bible college. He said, hey, I need you to run this small group for our youth group. Would you do it? He didn't say, could you, or I don't know if you're ready, or he's like, no, I see it in you. He called something out of me I didn't see. Dino Rizzo challenged me to do more for God than I thought I could. Still does. My wife, she feels my pain with me. We walk through life strengthening each other. That is what friendship is. Yes, it's my wife. Yes, Dino Rizzo in the ARC world, he's my boss. He's the chairman of the board for Children's Cup. These other, my mom and dad. But there's a level of friendship in all of this. So don't exclude that from this conversation we have here. These people have influenced my life greatly. And they are, and some of them were. My dad is passed on now, but they're my friends. Friendship creates the opportunity for influence. Now, that's not the whole reason we always go into friendship. I didn't meet Vicky one day and be like, oh, if I become her friend, I can influence her. That's not the motivation all the time, but it does do that. If you're a friend, it creates an opportunity for influence. And friendship that influences, I got 4 things I want to tell you about it. It takes time. First one is friendship. Legit friendship takes time. Jesus in John 4:4, he said, I got to go through Samaria. They're making a trip, him and the disciples, they're walking, and he's like, I got to go through Samaria. It's way out of the way, and it's through territory you just don't go to. If you're a Jew, you don't go to Samaria, all that stuff. But he's like, I got to go this way. I got to go through Samaria. He took a detour, what we would have called, and the disciples, I'm sure, thought it's a detour. But because he did that, he met the woman at the well, tells her about the gospel, tells her about his love for her, And she goes and tells the community and ends up being the first woman evangelist in the planet and tells all these people about Jesus. That was a good detour. Only it wasn't a detour. He took time. He invested time in her. I'll say this. The time you invest in being a friend will become the most valuable moments of your life. You just stop, be a friend to somebody. You think that's the interruption to your day. I got my day scheduled out. I got my calendar. I'm looking at it, and I'm doing this. I got to go here and here and here and here. And then there's this interruption. Somebody calls you and says, man, I got a flat tire. Would you come help me? And you're like, that's the interruption. But I think in heaven's books and certainly in friendship world, that's your day, is the flat tire fix. Or it's the come meet me, come bail me out of jail. Or it's the, hey, would you just come sit with me? I've got this thing I need to talk about. Taking time for your friends to invest in friendship, those are the things, those are the stories you tell. You don't tell a story about your average Monday afternoon when you did that meeting. Who tells that story? No, you tell the story about the time that you called me and your dog had just gotten run over. I'm sorry if that happened to anybody in here. Whatever. Your cat just got run over. That's okay. Sorry, I was not offended by the video, but I don't like cats. Those are the stories we tell when something exceptional happens, something remarkable. The second one, so first one, friendship takes time. Second one, friendship takes listening and noticing. This is a big one. This is a big part of my life, is trying to get better at this. Because I sometimes I'm doing the first one. I'm moving along too fast. I don't have time to notice. Luke 7, though, has a great story. Jesus walks up onto a funeral going on. This widow had lost her son, and he was the only support that she had. She's a widow. She's lost her husband. Now she's lost her last son. The Bible says this in Luke 7:13. It says, when the Lord saw her, the widow, his heart overflowed with compassion. He said, don't cry. Then he walked over to the coffin and touched it, and the bearers stopped. He said, young man, I tell you, get up. Then the dead boy, this is so great. I love the way this translation puts it. The dead boy sat up. He ain't dead if he's sitting up. I'm just kind of, he's past dead at that point. But the dead boy sat up and began to talk. Jesus gave him back to his mother. If he had been so busy to get where he's going and not let this funeral interrupt his schedule, if he wouldn't have noticed that this woman was in such a predicament, he wouldn't have had the compassion for her. But he noticed, he stopped, he noticed, and he listened to what was going on. Jesus noticed, stopped, looked, listened. And I think to be a friend, you just have to get to be a good noticer. I've got, like I said, 5 kids. Some of them notice everything. They don't miss a thing, and it irritates me. I can't mess up at all. They just notice everything. I got other kids, they don't notice anything. Like, they just float through. That's more like me. I can just float through. If I'm not consciously trying to be observant, I can blow past. I had it the other day. I'm walking, texting my wife, which is okay. That's not distracted texting. I'm texting and walking. Should be safe, but I think it may be more dangerous than texting and driving in my case. But I'm texting my wife, and I hear this guy passes by me. I didn't make eye contact with him or anything. Wasn't avoiding him, but I just heard, how you doing? And I turned and looked, and he's like 20 feet past me by the time I realized what he said. And one of my kids I was like, did he just say, how you doing to me? Like, I don't know who that is. And I don't know what I missed, though. And I'm trying to be better about that, of just having my mind be available to notice and to care that somebody engages or somebody needs something. I don't feel guilty about that. Okay, I'll just be honest. I don't, because I didn't even see him and all. But I don't want to be that person who's continually distracted and in my own world so much that I don't notice others, especially the others that God's already put in my life. If all you do is talk, your story is the only world you'll know. You ever been with people that are like, I tend to be this person, Peter can tell you. I talk a lot. So I'm watching this clock. Wow. I talk a lot. So if all you do is talk, your world is the only one you'll know. When you listen, your world enlarges, and with it, your wisdom and perspective enlarge. Third one, friendship takes giving. We talked about that a little bit in the Children's Cup context. That is very true there. But it takes giving of yourself. Sometimes it means your money, but it means you have to be willing to give. Give up your shovel. Loan your car to somebody. Bring some cookies over to somebody. Give. Proverbs 11:25, great verse. The generous will prosper. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. That is my prayer for this church, that the more you guys bless El Peje, The more you're generous to them, the more God is going to do here, and you're going to be refreshed here. The fourth one, friendship usually takes dealing with pain. I think sometimes that's where maybe there's a little self-defense that comes up. I don't want to get involved because that's painful. I don't. Like a worship leader this morning, he's standing here saying, I've been dealing with something. And, did your heart go out to him like, I want to see if I can help? Or were you like, oh, I'll pray for you over here? You know what I mean? Not every. I don't think he was asking everybody to come and give him $100. I don't think that's what he was doing. But I do think we have to gauge our reaction and be like, maybe this is something I need to lean into. Maybe this is a need that I need to lean into. And I think we avoid it because I've got enough pain in my own life. I got enough things going on in my own life. I can't handle more pain. Let me tell you, one of the best ways to deal with your own pain is to get involved in helping carry somebody else's, because what happens almost every time is that person you're helping carry their pain, they turn around and help you carry yours. And now you got two of you carrying two pains. That's always better than one at a time. Always, always, always. That's scriptural. I won't look up the scripture for you, but that is scriptural. Okay, friendship can take a lot. It's time, noticing, giving, pain. But please, 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 please see the rewards again. Remember the rewards. First one was the time you invest in being a friend will be remembered as the most valuable moments in your life. And the second one, when you listen as a friend, your own world enlarges and you gain wisdom you never would have had otherwise. The third one, when you give from your heart, you will prosper and be refreshed. And then that last one, when you share in someone else's pain, your own pain is easier to bear because there's two of you. And to me, the ultimate win in being a friend is not that we get all 30 kids going through the program. It's not that all these things I just read. The ultimate win in this life is you just never know what God's up to. You never know what he's doing when you have the opportunity to be a friend to somebody. It very well may save their life, or it may propel them forward beyond anything anyone ever would have thought that person could become. Your friendship can make the difference with that. It's not that complicated. Just be nice. I mean, if you want to get right down to it, it's not that complicated. Be nice. That's my message. You make the world a better place for others and for yourself when you're a friend to somebody else. That's this life. Now think about the even more important part of this in the life to come, in eternity. This one fires me up because being a friend to someone else here can have eternal consequences. Your friendship can make the difference. Your time, your giving, your listening, your noticing, your feeling pain, that could make the difference in where somebody spends their eternity. I like to think about it this way. Heaven's going to be full. I think it's going to take eternity to unravel all the mysteries of how we all got there. I got one story I want to tell you of a chain reaction. It's kind of what Tiffany was talking about earlier with her own story. But back in the mid-1800s, this 15-year-old boy, he's going through a tough spot in his life, got a lot of questions, and he thinks for whatever reason, he thought, I need God. I need to get to God. So he's walking down. He finds this church, just stumbles into the church and sits down, and there's this unknown substitute lay preacher. Like he's not the main preacher at this church. He's just the backup guy. He stepped into the pulpit and read his text. Isaiah 45:22 said, "Look to me and be saved, all the ends of the earth, for I am God and there is no one else." And then years later, that boy said, he had not much to say, thank God, for that compelled him to keep on repeating his text. And I didn't really need anything else. I just needed that text. The guy got out of the way. He just kept repeating his text. He said, then stopping, this is the boy telling the story back. He said, then stopping, the preacher pointed to where I was sitting under the gallery, and he said, that young man there looks very miserable. That preacher noticed this kid. And in doing so, he led that kid to Jesus. That boy was Charles Spurgeon. Some of you may know the name. He was one of the greatest preachers of the gospel in history. Several years later, Charles Spurgeon introduced a small booklet without words that conveyed the gospel message simply through the use of colors. No words. It's called the Wordless Book. That's how there's a way you can walk people through. This color means this, and you can give the message of salvation. So fast forward about a century to a little girl and her aunt. I say aunt, sorry if I'm saying it wrong. The aunt is explaining the gospel to a little girl using a wordless book. That wordless book exists because some preacher noticed a kid, right? This aunt is explaining the gospel to a little girl, and the little girl invites Jesus into her heart. Fast forward again to the end of last century, and that little girl is now in college and leads a young man to Jesus, and they wind up getting married and having a little boy. Okay. Don't know how that one happened, but it did. We'll ask later. Fast forward again, and that little boy is asking his mom, what happens when people die? She listens to him, and she ends up leading him to give his heart to Jesus. Fast forward once more, and we see that little boy grown up, married, pastoring this church. Right there. That's his story, the chain reaction. Because somebody noticed a little boy in the gallery, under the gallery. Somebody listened to their kid asking questions. Somebody noticed, somebody listened, somebody gave their time, somebody took time. I'm not too busy to listen to my kid asking a question. That substitute lay preacher wasn't a superstar. He wasn't the most famous. He probably wasn't even really good at preaching. A little bit more like me and the donkey. But he noticed a teenager who was miserable and needed Jesus, and he was willing to be a friend to him and influence him towards Jesus. That aunt was a friend to her niece to take time to explain the gospel to her. And then as a mom, that little girl was a friend to her little boy enough to feel his pain and listen to his questions and point him to Jesus. It's not that complicated. Friendship is not that complicated, but it is intensely potent. Peter Goweski is on his way to heaven today because all those people were willing to do something that's not that complicated, but they took time to do it and listened. You may sit there and think, well, I don't have that much to give. I'm not very good at being a friend. I'm kind of an introvert. I don't have that much. Well, the good thing is it doesn't take much. This is not rocket science. This is not complicated. It is simply just go be nice and let God introduce things that you didn't see coming. This is all about just being willing to give what you do have. I don't have much. Well, are you willing to give what you do have? To notice someone and make yourself available, to extend yourself through enough to let someone know you care, to be a friend. Be a friend like Jesus is to you. There's your thought. It's just not that complicated. Let me pray for you. God, today I volunteer all over again to give you what I do have. I want to listen. I want to notice. I pray you'd open my eyes to see opportunities to help others, to be a friend to others. God, I pray you would, the things that you have entrusted into my life that I do have, I surrender it to you to use how you want. God, the awkwardness that can be there sometimes, let me not care anymore. Let me be more interested in making a moment where somebody experiences true friendship, they experience hope. And God, I thank you for the privilege of being somebody that you would call on to be a friend to somebody else. And today, God, I pray you would just take this church, take each of us today, and help us to be willing to say, yes, God, I volunteer. I'll be a friend. In Jesus' name, amen.